Well, hello there, and thank you so much for stopping by the In Trive Talks, a place for the inspired, thriving tribe. My name is Ciera Payton, and I am your host and founder of the In Tribe. And listen, I made this space for you because I believe everybody is a creative. And so this platform is all about providing tips and tricks and tools and resources for aspiring creatives and artists to get inspiration and also build community. So that's why this podcast and the website is here for you. So before we dive into today's interview, I need you to do me a big favor. You already know what it is. Please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button down below so we could keep creating this content for you. So go ahead, take a moment, like and subscribe right down below. Awesome. All right. And so for those of you who don't know, I have founded a nonprofit organization called the Michael's Daughter Foundation. And what we do over there is we provide access to free and low-cost arts education and financial literacy workshops to youth and families in under-resourced communities. And so we work with incredible artists, directors, writers, animators, filmmakers, all of the above, to come and teach programs that help teach young people how to tap into their potential and see their light. And so today, I'm so excited to bring on one very special guest. She has been lending her talents to the Michael's Daughter Foundation for the past 2 years, and she's incredible to work with, and she's also a very, very talented artist. And this is none other than Emilia Mendieta Cordova. So before we dive into her interview, I just want to share a little bit about Emilia's background. All right, here we go. Hailing from Kansas, by the way of Ecuador, Emilia Mendieta Cordova is an Ecuadorian-American director of photography known for her bold visual storytelling. A Vassar College graduate with an MFA from AFI Conservatory, she's a 3-time Women in Media Altitude Awards semifinalist, a 2023 to 2024 AFC Vision Mentorship Program participant, and a cinematography fellow in the inaugural 2023 Women in Film Artisan and Crew Fellowships. Emilia has shot award-winning narrative shorts, feature films, and music videos showcased at notable festivals such as LALIFF, LA Shorts, Urban World, BOGO Shorts, LAIFF, Portland Film Festival, CineQuest, and CineGear Film Series. As an educator, she has taught cinematography at multiple universities, provides mentorship at several youth-centered film programs, and co-hosts the ICFC's podcast. A multilingual, classically trained cellist, Emilia is a certified drone pilot and a passionate Star Wars fan. So, without further ado, please help me welcoming Miss Emilia Mendieta Cordova. All right. So, Emmy, thank you so much for stopping by the In Trive Talks. I'm so excited to have you here, and I appreciate you taking your day out to come have a little conversation. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Awesome. All right, cool. So, all right, we gotta dive in because I'm curious about you, and also I made a little astrology mistake recently. So, so I love asking the astrology question because I love knowing a little bit about what people know about their signs. So can you tell us, and everybody that's listening, do you know your zodiac sign, your top 3 in terms of like rising, moon, sun sign?
I do, and it's a very weird combination per my astrologer. So,
okay,
I'm a Capricorn sun, a Virgo moon, and a Gemini rising. So,
ooh, oh wow,
weird little combo there.
Oh, awesome. Okay, are there any things that people say? Gosh, okay, I'm like thinking like, what does that mean? Virgo moon. You said Virgo moon, Gemini rising?
Yeah. I mean, the way my astrologer puts it is like my Gemini rising and my Capricorn's ass are just like consistently at odds because like my Capricorn self is, sorry, I don't know if I can curse here. But
No, you're good. You're good.
My Capricorn sun is just, I'm very, very Capricornian, very earthy. I'm very grounded, I'm very hardworking. A lot of people say I'm very reserved. I look and all that stuff like very Capricorn, and I like plans. I like making plans. I like following plans. But then my Gemini rising is very much like, let's throw it all to the wind and let's go on adventures. And my Capricorn ass is like, no, but plans. Which is good. I mean, it's a good thing because I think like that allows me to actually have taken a lot of the detours, interesting adventures I've gone in my life, and not just being like, I'm going to do this thing, kind of thing. And the Virgo moon is just the meticulousness of things. So it's an interesting like play between those three energies. So
Yeah, it's a combination I could really appreciate, honestly,
yeah.
because like I think you have to have in this business at least,
Mm-hmm.
and just in what we do as artists, I do think that you have to have that grounded Capricorn and Virgo,
Mm-hmm.
organization, and almost like, I mean, I think they say a lot about Virgos is like they're perfectionists, but I
Yeah.
think it's like really you have to it's not about perfection, but I think with Virgos, which I really appreciate, is the structure. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that you do have to have that, in the artist field. And then you have the Gemini side that is like, free flowing, going with the wind, can also be adaptable and change things up. So I don't know, I think that's a really cool combination to have.
Yeah.
It's pretty dope.
It's good. Sometimes it gets at odds with things. Again, because my Virgo moon is very like, again, my astrologer says like, I am happy if you give me like a puzzle to solve, or like something to organize. Like my brain just kind of works that way. It'll like work through the puzzle, work through the organization. That's actually how I solve things. But yeah, I like adventure, but I also like being like stable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel that too. I'm a Capricorn rising, so I definitely like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like my thing. I'm like, I need to know what we're doing, how we're doing it, where we're doing it. And then my
Yeah.
Aquarius side is like, oh, it doesn't matter, just like do it, and I'm like, oh. So yeah. Are there any things that people say about your zodiac sign that you find 100% true, or the flip side that you're like, that's absolutely not me at all?
No, I usually get when I tell them like I'm a Capricorn, a lot of people are like, yeah, that tracks. Like you're such a Capricorn. And I'm like, cool. But it's funny because like a lot of my collaborators end up being like signs that I collaborate well with. Like a lot of my collaborators are Tauruses. I don't know why that ends up
Nice.
happening. And so we play off each other in that way. But yeah, I think usually they're right. So there's nothing that's ever been like, no, that doesn't sound right. I'm like, no. But I'm like, yeah, I'm a Capricorn. Very Capricorn.
Nice. Nice. I love that. All right, cool. Okay. So, all right, now we're getting in here. I love it. So, with the Capricornness and the Virgo-ness and the Gemini-ness, can you just share a little bit about what your upbringing was like, what your cultural upbringing was like? I know that was like a weird segue, but
No.
we want to know a little bit about Emmy. So I want to hear a little bit about this little Capricorn and how she navigated, her upbringing.
Yeah. So I was born in Wichita, Kansas, to two academic parents. My parents work in academia. They were professors at the time. And when I was 5, we moved to Ecuador. We were supposed to be there for a year. And my joke is, 31 years later, they're still down there. The university administrators, they work their way up. And so I kind of grew up in an academic environment. I also like to joke that I've been going to college since I was born because my dad would bring me to his classes and, like, in my little carrier thing, and he'd teach while I was there. Yeah, I grew up in Ecuador until I was 17. And then I moved back here to the United States. I went to Vassar College out in Poughkeepsie, New York, and then spent 2 years in New York City, and then kind of have bounced around. I think the Gemini side of that, to like tie it back into the astrology, is like I always say, like, I'm a bit of a location commitment phobe.
Mm.
I like to be in different places. I haven't really stayed in one place for a huge amount of time, except LA. I've been in California for the past 12 years in some way, shape,
Hmm.
or form. I was in Sacramento for 3 of those and in Ecuador for 1. But LA is the place I've lived in the longest in my adult life in general, which is interesting. I like moving around. I like experiencing different things, different people, different places. And I think in the upbringing that came through because my parents were really big on travel. There are two things nobody can ever really take away from you. One is your education, and two is your experiences and your travel. And for them, exposing me and my brother to different cultures, different environments, different scenarios was really, really important. So like we would travel somewhere every single year. They made that a priority. I'd been to a good chunk of the United States. I've been to Europe. I've been to a good chunk of South America. When I was in college, I'm also Chinese. I'm a film and Chinese double major.
That I was going to ask about that. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So I've been to China. I've been, and like in my adult life, that's something that I continue to do. When I have money and time to travel, I like to experience new things. And it doesn't have to be a really, really big thing. Like a friend of mine invited me to go to Palm Springs like 2 weekends ago. And I was like, let's do it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even just going 2 hours out of LA and seeing like something new is always enriching for me. And in that same way, we grew up being like, we adventurous eaters in a way, in the sense of like my parents were always like, you just have to try something once. If you don't like it, you don't have to have it again, but you need to try it at least. And I think growing up with that kind of philosophy with food in particular has made me to discover a lot of things that maybe, or try a lot of things that if I came in with a more closed mindset, I would have been like, I will never try that. And then I'm like, oh no, this is actually really delicious. But also experience different traditions and different cultures from around the world that way. And it's something I take into my professional life as well. I'm like sometimes, like, okay, let's try this. If it just doesn't feel like my vibe or it doesn't feel like what I want to be doing, I don't have to do it again. But like at least see what it's about, within reason. There's some things that I'm just like, yeah, maybe that's not, but yeah, so I think that's kind of the ethos I grew up around with. Ecuador. Growing up in Ecuador was interesting. I did not realize how rich of an experience it was until actually very recently.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this sounds real stupid, but like I didn't realize that not everyone went to Galapagos at least 4 times. I was like, until I was just like, wait, that's fair. People want to go there, kind of thing. Like I've worked in the Galapagos Islands, so I'm just like, okay,
wow.
and so I'm just like looking back on things. I'm like, yeah, I lived through these very unique experiences, and like they were not always pleasant. The flip side to growing up in a country like that is like I've lived through 3 coups d'etat and 3 volcanic eruptions, like in a lot of political instability, and so I'm like, but that also informs the richness of that, my lived experience that I'm like is unique to me and how I approach the world and see the world. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. And I'm curious, do you know why your parents decided to move to Ecuador when you were 5?
Yeah, so my family is originally from Ecuador. So
Okay.
I am Ecuadorian-American, and the whole idea is that they wanted to go to Ecuador for a year because they wanted me and my brother to be close to my grandparents for a year. My parents had been living here in the United States for a really, really long time and naturalized citizens, all that stuff. And they were like, okay, let's take them out and just like, because again, for them, cultivating that part of our identity was important. But they found a lot of opportunity in their professional careers down there, a lot of growth for that. So that's why they stayed. So.
Oh man, that's so cool. I mean, I know, maybe some kids would be like, no, I don't want to leave, especially at age 5, but I just think that's like really cool that your parents decided to do that at such a young age. And so I'm curious, while you were in Ecuador, your family, your parents are academics. Do you remember if there was a defining moment at all that, kind of opened up your mind to creativity, to artistry? And for the record, I believe everybody is an artist or creative at heart. But, to actually go into the field of, cinematography, storytelling, filmmaking, were there little glimmers of that at age 5, or what was the defining moment that made you want to explore that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. My parents are really, really big advocates of liberal arts. They've worked at universities that liberal arts is part of their teaching ethos. And they brought my brother and I went to a liberal arts American style school when we were in Ecuador.
Oh, cool.
My parents wanted us to be well-rounded individuals. But particularly when it comes to the arts and storytelling, I've been writing and reading since I was a really, really early, I think I wrote my first story when I was 3 with the help of my dad.
Oh.
This real little storybook I remember writing. I read my first book by myself at age 5. My dad was reading like Dr. Dolittle and Matilda since I was 4. So, and I was a really, really avid reader throughout my entire childhood. I devoured books. I read the entire library at my school by the age of 11. And so that's where the storytelling aspect comes from. And again, I've been writing since I was very, very young. I wrote in journals. I have like notebooks from when I was 6 and 7, just like these whole worlds I was creating. And the filmmaking side, though, was interesting.
Mhm.
My parents really love films. They're huge film buffs, and not none of the more like traditional like cinema, but they just love movies. And
Mhm.
we'd go to the movie theater like maybe once every couple weeks when we were in Ecuador. They still go to the movie theater every couple weeks, or like they watch a lot of things. More on the popular culture side of things. But when I was around 6 or 7, my dad started showing us like movies he really liked from like his younger, days. And the thing that really defined what I wanted to do, and again, I call myself very lucky that I
Mm.
found what I want to do at that age. I was 7, and my dad borrowed a projector and a laser disc player from the university,
Oh, wow.
and like the stereo system, and like got a copy of the original Star Wars trilogy and projected it into the living room, like
Oh, my
wall for
God.
my brother and me to watch. And like it's the first time like I saw something and I was just like, that's what I want to do. Like it was just an
Mm.
immediate like that is what I want to do with my life. It wasn't like I want to be a character in Star Wars. Like, no, I want to make that. And I was like, I remember asking my dad, I was like, well, how do I get involved with that? And like, who's in charge of these things? He's like, well, the director's in charge of making movies. And it was just like, this, like, okay, that's what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be a filmmaker. I'm
Wow.
going to be a director. And it's just something that has been my true north for a huge part of my life. The cinematography thing was actually a bit of a detour in my adulthood and my adult life.
Mhm.
But Star Wars still is like what I want to shoot. I say I like putting that out there because I'm just like
Mhm.
I want to shoot a Star Wars TV show specifically. that
Yes. Oh, I
that is
love that.
yeah, it's my ultimate goal still, and that's what I would like to be working towards. But so yeah, I kind of just since that moment really focus all my attention to like, okay, I'm going to be a filmmaker. How do I do this? What do I need to do to get to university with a good film program and like, tell the stories I want to be telling. And I educated myself on like the business and several sides of it, and how I could do what I wanted to do, and just kind of like since age 7, this is what I'm doing.
Ooh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. Or
Sure.
actually, go ahead and finish what you were saying because I got questions, but finish what you were going to say.
Yeah, no, so that, yeah, I just very Capricornian, very like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm just
Hmm.
doing it kind of thing.
Oh, I love that. Okay, because you get me a little excited here because I'm thinking about, some of the youth that we work with
Mhm.
and just, people in general, when you want to do something and you're in, like, at 5 or at 7, sorry, you weren't living in the middle of Hollywood, you were in Ecuador,
Mhm.
and so what were, at 7, you're like, you gravitated towards that. Star Wars is speaking to you. George Lucas is like, do
Mhm.
this. So what are the next steps from there? Is it you start going to a library, finding books, or is it, you just continue throughout school? And then I'm just curious because some people, especially at age 7, or even now, like some of the kids that we work with in juvenile detention facilities, they're
Mhm.
early 20s and when they get out, they have no idea what the next step is for them to do anything that they want to do. And so walk me through a little bit of what was that next step for you? How did that come about to go to film school?
There was a few things. I mean, this is back in like the mid 90s for school. So like the internet wasn't a
Yeah.
thing in the way it is now.
Hmm.
So, and I had limited resources to your point, but like back then, one of the first things I did was like I started watching like all the behind the scenes things and like Laserdisc,
Oh.
DVDs, all that stuff. And I was just fascinated. I was like, okay, how does this actually get made? What are all the moving pieces that go into it? And George Lucas in particular, one of the things about Star Wars that was great, I think, in the way I started approaching his things, and like in one of these behind the scenes, they mentioned like Joseph Campbell's influence on him and like old Kurosawa films influence on Star Wars. And so I was like, okay, who's Joseph Campbell? Go to the library, like start reading, Power of Myth and, Here with Thousand Faces. Like, I was reading that at 10 because I'm crazy like that. But like, I was
So
fascinated
cool.
by story structure, and I was like, okay, cool. And then taking that, and because I was, again, writing the whole time and being like, okay, I started creating my own stories. Like, okay, what is three-act structure? And like, or, how do I incorporate mythology and all that stuff into my own writing? And like, it's messy. They're not good stories, but you start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just like, I just started making my own stuff, like, again, my first movie was a stop motion with what I had, which was like my parents' like VHS camera and toys. I was like, my first little film was Little People Go to the Pizzeria. It was a stop motion animation. My second film was a science project. I learned how to animate using Cinema 4D way back in high school, and it was
Wow.
a cell doing mitosis dancing to Mambo Number 5. So
What? Oh my gosh, I have to see this.
no,
Is
it's terrible.
this anywhere on the
No.
internet? Anywhere?
No, it's
Please.
somewhere in my parents' like, VHS type collection.
Oh my God.
So it's just for me, it's just like I think that's really, and I was writing the whole time. I was writing novels, screenplays. Again, nothing super big. I was shooting whatever I could with my. I remember one Christmas, my parents gave me the Steven Spielberg Lego set. So I was doing a lot of
Oh,
stop motion animation with like little Legos and telling my own stories and just getting through that process of storytelling. I think one of the best advice I've ever heard, and that's something that like I keep, even in my adult life, is when I was at Vassar, the poet Billy Collins came to school to speak, and he said something really cool. Someone asked him like, well, how do you become like a great poet? And he goes like, everyone has 1,000 shitty poems inside of them. Everyone.
mm-hmm.
Right? And until you sit down and write those 1,000 terrible poems, the 1,001th might be like, okay. And then like, as you keep on writing, you actually get to a place where like you are a good poet, but you have to write those thousands terrible poems that are inside of you.
Yeah.
And I was like, with filmmaking, it's the same thing, like I think, or storytelling, like you just have to tell stories, and the first ones you tell will not be good. They will not be perfect, but you need to write them down. You need to get them out. You need to like educate yourself about, okay, story structure. Why wasn't this one working? Okay, the next one will work better. Why wasn't this character relatable? Let's improve it for the next one. And just write and just make things, really. And I'm just like, one of the things that I'm jealous is the wrong word because I don't want to say jealous, but like there's so much more information and just so many tools at everybody's disposal right now. Like I would have killed to have this when I was a kid, like, and like I tell them, like, because I teach a lot of youth, I'm just like, your cell phone, like I've shot things on a cell phone. Like I have the Blackmagic Cam app on there, and that matches the Blackmagic footage out of the pocket perfectly. You can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, there's so much power in your cell phone to tell stories.
Yep. Yeah.
And there's so much resources at your disposal, like YouTube.
Yeah.
You can just go in there and like pretty much learn anything. So there's just so many resources out there if you really want to grow. It takes grit and it takes dedication, and like it's hard. It's a really hard journey. And in terms of film school, I mean, in Ecuador, there was a film school in Ecuador. There was a film school in the universities where my parents were teaching, a good one at that, But I also saw that and I was like, I want to be doing things at a really big scale, And like, okay, what is that going to take? Where do I need to be? Where do I need to go to make things at these big scale? Film school is not the answer for everybody. I will be very clear with that.
I agree.
It's not necessary to do. I know a lot of very, very successful filmmakers who have never gone to film school, but that have done that sort of education for themselves. That is the caveat to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thrive best in a learning environment, so film school was the right choice for me. And I was very careful about what kind of film school I went to for my undergraduate. Again, maybe I'm biased because my parents were like liberal arts, kind of thing. Going to a college like Vassar, where I could focus on filmmaking, but their film program is unique in the sense that at the time they didn't let you touch a camera until you were a junior. They really wanted you to have a very solid story structure. So like history and story, which I actually really appreciate, because the minute you're touching a camera, you're not going in so much blind. Like the technical side of things is really easy to learn. Storytelling is really the hard part. So having that theory behind me was important, a good thing, but also it was a college that actually encouraged you to take classes in other subjects. Again, liberal arts, right? And so I took a bunch of other things. I'm a musician as well. I'm a cellist, so I like took cello. I did orchestra. I did theater. I took religion courses. I took science, technology, I took math. You know, there's just all these things inform your storytelling, because I also feel that like the richer your life experience, the richer your stories are. So like the more you expose yourself to a variety of things, the better. For me, I'm just like, again, that's my personal opinion, like a film program that is just like super hyper focused on just film, I'm like, can be a little bit devoid of humanity sometimes. And like stories are humanity for me, a reflection of that. So that was the other important thing about film school for me. I wanted something that could give me a proper foundation to, make things at a bigger scale, but also expose me to that variety of things that I had grown up with, like I don't want to just do film. I want to tell stories. And so I need to know things, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're speaking my language so like to the T right now, because, I would say one of the challenges I've been having, with doing this work, Michael Zorder Foundation, and, trying to go into spaces to, bring on teachers that don't have, filmmaking experience, but, to have them go in and work with youth and say, hey, guys, this is, so with some of our other programs, we're doing animation. And I say, and there's an array of reasons, and I'm sure you can speak to this, but I say, hey, the scripts have to be 2 minutes long. And it's a 16-week animation program. And the first thing that always happens is like, why is it so short? Why, it's like, there's this like hands up in the air, like this is unfair. It needs to be like, why can't it be 90 minutes, or why can't it be 10 minutes long? And it's been a challenging experience, because, when people don't have that filmmaking background, they don't understand, firstly, all the technical stuff that goes into it, but also like that 2 minutes is a wealth of time to tell a story. And, you have to start, I think you said something like you have to start somewhere. And it's like 2 minutes is where you can start. I mean, I know some other animation programs that start with 15 seconds. So it's just like, it's an interesting thing. And so I'm just wondering if you can speak a little bit to that, about just brevity, and why, when you're first starting out along your creative journey, why it's important to start small, or just start where you are.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not just important for the start of your filmmaking journey. I think it's something I take with me now. For me, it's like, if you can't tell a story in 2 minutes, like, I don't know if I can really trust you. I mean, that sounds weird, but like,
no, it's true. Yeah.
One of my favorite exercises that I've done, like in general, is when I was at AFI, they have something called the visual essay program. It's part of the cinematography program, and they give you 2,000 feet of 35 millimeter film. They give you the camera and 2 days and all the equipment AFI has. And you have to go, and you fund it yourself.
Wow.
But you have to go out and tell a 2-minute story without sound. So you can add like music and Foley and all that stuff in post, but it has to be told completely visually. So you can't rely on dialogue. And I think there's a lot of like, when you first get confronted with this challenge, because I also taught at AFI for a bit and helped run this program. There's a little bit of like, well, but why can't I do dialogue? And like, I had a little bit of that reaction to it too, to be completely honest.
I think everybody would, right?
Yeah. It's just like, what dialogue, and then like, but then like, okay, it really forces you to strip story down to its bare elements. Like if you can't tell a story completely visually, it really forces you to just go down to that core of what story is and how that evolves, and like, working with an actor and getting that performance visually, and like the everything that goes into it. And like sound is a very, very important part of storytelling, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's something that, once it's stripped away from you, you can't use it as a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really forces you to, be concise but eloquent in 2 minutes. And that's a very, very, like, again, like that to me, after going through this and having run this program and all that stuff, it's like, it's an incredibly valuable skill. And I've also worked commercials. Like, I think commercials or PSAs or that sort of stuff, I've seen incredible stories told in 30 seconds, 15 seconds. I mean, to me, that's just like, that is really the sign of a masterful storyteller. If you can tell a complete story in 30 seconds, it's incredible. And going into and like putting that, learning that way, learning in short form, mastering that skill will help you the minute you have 90 minutes, because then you're actually creating a good 90 solid minutes,
Yeah.
And so with kids, that's also the thing, like I know that, it can be frustrating to be like, well, why can't my script be more than 3 pages long, 10 pages long? And I'm just like, if you knew what it actually took to get those 10 pages to look and feel and be what you want them to be, right? As an artist, and just like, you're starting out on this journey, start small and grow. Like, once you've mastered the small things, you can start expanding. And like, but I get it. It's hard to see that when you're like starting out. It's very hard to see that because like you don't realize the complexity that goes into more longer formats.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying this conversation like I know you are, then I have some additional offerings for you. Head on over to the In Trive and sign up on our mailing list. There, you not only get first dibs on meetups, workshops, and special events tailored to our community, but you'll also get a special discount code on the Creative You course. Now, this course is all about helping you to level up and elevate your creative career. Because listen, I've been in this business now for nearly 2 decades, and I've experienced all the highs and lows, and I've developed so many tools to navigate those, and now I'm sharing them with you. So go to theintribe.com/cultivate and check out the Creative You course. And last but not least, just for tuning in and signing up, I'm giving you a freebie. It's our In Tribe Hive Level Up Guide. It's a special daily guide for practicing ways to be your optimum creative self. Because listen, an all-around healthy artist is a thriving artist, and that's what we're all about here. So check out our site, sign up for our newsletter, get a special discount code for the Creative You course, and take off with your new In Tribe Hive Level Up Guide. It's new beginnings here, and so let's get inspired and thrive only at the In Tribe. See you soon. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah. And that's just been the goal of, doing this program in general, is like just trying to teach people, that it's, because I think with these things, that we're so used to just instant gratification.
Yeah.
And like, we don't the general population doesn't understand, like you say, for commercial, the weeks of planning, the months of planning that go into that. And then the filming day is just one aspect of it. And, in some commercials, like, I've done commercials, probably been on set for like a day or two, but, some are longer than that. And you're looking at, this is 30-second content, It's like, and it's just like, my big thing is that I don't want to do anybody a big disservice of coming through our doors and thinking that you can make a 2-minute animation in 30 minutes, or you can write a 2-minute script and that's it. It's just like, no. Like that's not, we got AI, we got whatever, but it's just like the real heart of storytelling is really like, what do you have to say? And can you say it in one word or less or with no words?
Yep.
And if you can do that, if you can master that, then let's go ahead and go up to 3 pages. If we got the budget to do it, let's go up to 5 pages. Let's go up to 10
100%.
pages, So it's just like, it's an interesting thing. And it's something I've battled so much. And I've just been like, I don't know how to really explain this. And it's like, not even just to the youth, but just to some of the teachers that I'm like, no, you got you got to go back to the drawing board and really have to understand the importance of short form content, especially because we got these cell phones and we got the TikTok and the Instagram.
and people are making millions of dollars by doing little 90-second reels.
Yep.
So it's like, what, like you have to understand the power of that and how to lead and teach that. And it's just an interesting thing that I'm seeing across the board, with, I don't know, with programs like this, that it's a hard thing for people to learn it and like respect it, I guess. So
yeah, and I think part of it is, and this is not, I mean, it's not a blame to anyone. It's just like, I think that, and it's because it's hard. As again, I've been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've been there too. Yeah.
Enjoying the process.
Yeah.
Enjoying the process and focusing on the fact that the process is just as fun as the end result. There's this whole thing, people will see me on set and they're like, you're such a joyous, happy, energetic person. Like, I'll dance like in between takes and like on the camera, wiggle around, just like bubbly, because I love being on set. I love my job. I love my job. And I'm just like, and yes, there's stressful environments. And yes, I take it seriously. Don't get me wrong. But I love it. Love it so much. I'm very passionate about what I would do. But the prepping process is just as exciting to me. I might not be as bubbly and just like this, like, but I love sitting down with a director and shot listing. I love sitting down with a director and like going through their visual references, watching films, just having these conversations about like, okay, what do you want to say with this? How do what inspired it? What is the emotion behind it? And like really distilling this so that like when we're crafting the way the film is going to be like, I love that part too. I love the technical, I love going to rental houses and testing 3 sets of lenses, 10 sets of lenses, cameras. Like that's also part of the artistry to that. And I love that process too. But a lot of people, I guess, are not taught to really enjoy the prepping process as well. And in that same sense, like the post process, like when people like, I have directors who have had and producers who have had very good collaborations with who will be like, hey, we'd love to have you in the editing room, get notes. And like if I can, I always try to go to these things because the fact that they value my opinion as a storyteller to help craft that story in post-production is, first of all, I'm very honored by that request and that invitation. But also, like, again, I love that part too. I love the, like, even the arguments where you're just like, no, that edit should be in this frame and that frame. And I love that part too. And I think we get sometimes so focused on like the end result, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just like loving the process. And again, when you're starting out, like shot listing doesn't seem sexy. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I tell my students that when I introduce shot lists to them, they're like, "Oh my God, we have to plan a shot list," and I'm like, "I promise you, like, let me walk you through the process and what it should look like, not just like sitting there being like, okay, we're going to do a wide shot and then these 2 coverages to, like, no, okay, why are you doing the coverage? What's the emotional motivation behind this? Why are you doing an OTS versus keeping it clean? Like, how is your actor going to move around the scene? Why is, talk to your director about that. This might all go out the window the minute you're on set, mind you. But like and I was like, the other thing about shot listing and having these conversations is that like, if you understand why you were doing that OTS over that actor and not keeping it clean, but then you're on set and the actor does something and like the motivation changes, right? You're like, you can go to the director as a DP, be like, hey, actually, let's keep it clean, because the connection between these 2 characters breaks at this moment, And then you're talking about the shot list and how the story is going to evolve. But because you did that homework and you did that prep work and you talked about all these things before, it's not just sitting there being like, okay, what do we need to cover this, right? So really teaching people to learn to love the process, but that's also a really hard thing to teach.
It is. I was going to ask you, I mean, what for you, because I feel like it's really rare for somebody to love the process. And I think that usually it entails some type of like eye-opening experience or, some reflective time. So for you, what was a catalyst for you that helped you to really learn the process or learn to love the process of filmmaking?
Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, going back to astrology, I think that's the Virgo moon side of me. Again, like just watching these BTS things, like again, Star Wars was so pivotal to that because like they talk about like finding all these things that like were junk or things and like gluing them together and suddenly you have a tracker and or like the way they were building these sets, because the first one was so low budget. They were just thinking really outside the box and really creatively about how they create these otherworldly sounds. How are they making these things look bigger than they are? And the minute you start seeing that, you can do a lot if you think creatively. And that's one of the things I bring into things, and I talk to my students too. I'm like, look, limitations is the mother of all invention. If you're in a box, don't think about what you don't have. Look at what you do have and maximize it. I teach it through another program right now, and I just built a whole ass spaceship out of cardboard and foam,
Wow.
And it's just like, again, looked up some YouTube videos. I'm like, okay, I need to build a spaceship. I am not a production designer. I'm not an engineer. Cool, how we do this? And for no money, because we have no money. So look, I found this video in which they built this actual professional sci-fi set out of cardboard and like funny looking foam packaging place, like those things that come when you buy a TV, the foam pieces that are
Yeah.
They were like, look, go find all these foam pieces, stick them to the cardboard. You can, arrange the cardboard this way and hot glue everything. And I was just like, okay, I have a hot glue gun. I can get cardboard. I can get these foam pieces. And thinking outside the box that way. And, again, I built this cardboard spaceship with foam.
Wow.
And again, not an engineer, not a production designer. So I'm consistently thinking that way, again, because growing up, like I grew up in a place that didn't have access to a lot of these things. So I'm like, what do I have? Okay, I have little people and I have Legos. Let's make still motion animation with that, So I think it's just really about like when I talk to kids in particular, it's like, okay, what do you have in your house? What do you have around you? Like, what can you make with that? How can you transform it? How can this like inform things? And I think the other thing that I found really helps with students to like enjoy the process is really helping them approach it from a story perspective. Because a lot of people, like with production and design in particular, I remember this moment recently with some kids that we were shooting this scene in a bathroom, and they have to plan what's going into this bathroom because it's the school bathroom, and they need to make it look like it's not a school bathroom. And I was just like, okay, we have a little budget. We can get a few things. Okay, so let's think about it this way. Okay, whose bathroom? Where is this bathroom? They're like, well, in this house. And I'm like, okay, who owns this house? And they're like, well, this character's mother. And I'm like, great. Who is this character's mother? And they sat there and thought. I'm like, okay, how old is she? They're like, well, she's, maybe in her mid-30s, early 40s. Okay, great. What is she like? And they're like, this, and that. And they're like, is this her guest bathroom? Is this her bathroom? What is this? And they're like, oh, it's her guest bathroom. Okay, great. How would this person decorate their guest bathroom? And they're like, oh. And this was the insulting part.
Oh, God. I'm like, not ready for it.
Yeah. They're like, she's a millennial who loves millennial gray and has like a live, laugh, love sign. And like, it's all ocean themed. And I'm just sitting there being like, okay, my house is millennial gray. God damn it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm fine. And I'm in my mid-30s too. So I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that insult. I'm fine. They're kind of cringy. I'm like, great, cool, that's fine. But I'm also like, but they're thinking about the character. They're thinking about how like this woman in her mid-30s would actually, decorate this bathroom. And then they're like, okay, cool. Based on that, what kind of hand towels does she have in her bathroom? They're like blue, these kinds of like ocean blues. And she has like this candle. She has these little fake cacti. I'm like, great. These are all things we can purchase and make this bathroom like feel lived in. And the minute we actually put that set together, they're like, oh, wow, this looks like a real character actually lives here. Like, yeah, because you did that whole thought process there. It's not just random objects that we placed in here. It's like it feels like someone actually chose these and that there's life to it. And it was just that kind of clicked. They're like, oh, okay. So like, and that's part of, they're like, they really enjoyed that process of thinking about production design that way, And so I think sometimes sitting with them and having those discussions really gets them engaged in that kind of process.
Yeah. And it teaches them how to be resourceful too. I think I really think that just as an artist in general, like that is the name of the game. Like you can't be
just sitting around waiting for inspiration to hit you. Like, you have to be resourceful. You got to solve the problem. You got to figure it out. And what we're talking about throughout this whole thing is like, you got to find the joy in the process of figuring it out. Which is not easy, obviously. Like I mean, as an actor, but also as an educator, that is hard, like that's not, but then when it's all over, I think that's how I've learned over the years, is like reflecting back and be like, oh man, I could have had a little bit more fun figuring it out, rather than just like, the grind of it all.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you though, I'm looking at our time here, but I'm curious. So, you went on your own path, and you're still on your path of, being a creative, being a filmmaker. What was the junction for you where you started getting into teaching?
Okay. Yeah. So let me tell you about the junction in the cinematography thing first, and then the teaching thing. Mm-hmm. I was working at a tea company in New York. I've lived many lives.
I love that.
I was right after college. I moved to New York with $2,000 in my pocket, which ran out about a month in, because 2012. And I took a job as I was the fifth person hired in this startup tea company, and hired as an admin assistant. And 2 weeks in, I talked myself into a job as a videographer and graphic designer, because they discovered I could use Photoshop and Illustrator. And this was the early days of social media. So I convinced them they needed a social media presence too. So
oh, wow.
I did that. And because the tea came from the Amazon, the Ecuadorian Amazon, actually, they sent me down there to take video of their operations. And I was hiking through the Amazon jungle with a Canon T2i strapped to my back. And I was just like, I don't know how to capture all this beauty around me. And I was just very frustrated by it. And then I had this light bulb moment of like, oh, I'm not a director, I'm a DP.
Oh,
great. Oh, crap. That really changed the course of my life, because I got back to New York and I was like, shit, I'm not a director. I mean, like, I direct things, don't get me wrong, but I'm primarily a director of photography. I love that. It just felt like I'd found my true calling for that. And I was like, okay, how do we switch this off? Got back. Serendipitously, I found that the applications to the AFI Conservatory had reopened. This was March 2013.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, if we're going to be a DP, let's actually be a DP. Let's go back to film school. But if we're going to go back to grad school, let's make it for something very specific and very technical. So I was like, let's throw our hat into the ring for the cinematography track at AFI. If we don't get in, we're moving to New Mexico, to Albuquerque, and crewing our way up. That was my plan. So we're going to quit my job in May. If I don't get into grad school, I'm going to go crew my way up.
On Breaking Bad, probably down in New Mexico. Yeah.
That was my grand plan at 24.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like that I need to say is that I had graduated from undergrad, and I really did not see the point of going to grad school until this moment, because I was like, why am I going to spend all this exorbitant amount of money to go to grad school for a general filmmaking program for directing? I could take, if I had that money, I could take it and shoot a film myself, right? That was my whole thing. But also, I really was resistant to teaching because my parents are teachers. And their whole life, they really saw academia as like a good backup for me. They're like, well, if you don't make it as a filmmaker, you can always teach, kind of thing. But not if you don't have a graduate degree. That was the whole thing for them. They were very hell-bent on me going to grad school. And like, I was just like, no, absolutely not, absolutely not. And so I got back from New York and I was like, oh crap. Applied to grad school. And against all odds, because mind you, AFI at the time took only 28 cinematographers. I think they take 24 now. So it's very competitive to get in.
Yeah.
I got in. So I moved to LA and was, doing the grad school thing. And my parents were happy. They were, well, you can teach now. And I was just like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was like, no, I'm going to be a filmmaker. And it was my second year. And I took this class. It was one of our required classes, which was like practical. I don't remember what exactly it's called, but it's advanced cinematography or something like that. And I had this teacher, Sandra Valde Hansen, ASC, who's one of my mentors now, actually. And every class, so she was the teacher who taught the class, but she would bring in these guest lecturers every single class or every other class. And there's these really established DPs who would volunteer their time to come and teach us something very specific. So, you're learning like multi-camera shooting from like Uda Brieszewicz, who like shot The Wire, or like, learning how to like light cars from Bill Bennett ASC, who shoots all these car commercials, or learning how to do music videos, cinematography from Daniel Pearl, who shoots these big music videos. And like my ethos towards teaching started to change. I saw how much these people cared about mentoring the next generation of cinematographers and how much Sandra cared about her students. And I started learning a little bit more about traditionally how cinematographers would come out in the game before film school. And it really was this kind of apprenticeship kind of thing, And so it really became super clear to me that mentorship and education and teaching is such a core part of this industry that nobody really talks about.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I was just sitting there being like, I've had such a privileged life in that sense, in terms of like education. I've had a phenomenal education. My parents made sure of that, and the choices I've made in my adult life have made sure of that, right? But also, not everyone has access to that. But also bringing up the next generation of filmmakers, of storytellers, or just, getting people, because storytelling is a tool to get people to think in different ways too. Like even if you don't end up becoming a filmmaker, if you're taking a film course, if you're taking some sort of storytelling art course, you do see a difference in how people start approaching other aspects of their life or their life in general.
Yeah.
And I really started to see that in that class. And I was just like, you know what? I was just like so angry because I was like, damn it, I am going into teaching. My parents are right. And I was like, no, I want to teach. And teaching and mentorship is now part of my ethos as a filmmaker. I think it's part of like my core values and how I see myself as a professional. I've taught at all levels and in different modalities. I've taught college, I've taught like very high, grad school, and I've taught kids as young as 6, So it's, and I think, I'm not teaching the kids as young as 6 what a color space is, mind you, but it's hard. There are many challenges to teaching, but ultimately I find it extremely rewarding. You really can see how storytelling and filmmaking can change someone's lives. And again, as I said before, the way they approach things. So, and there's people who want to go into this field and, providing mentorship is important to me. Providing access and opportunities is important to me because I've benefited from people doing that for myself, and people continue to do that for me. I have mentors. I have at least 3 people I would call mentors of mine that have been officially assigned to me through programs or through like life. But and there are people that like I still call up when I'm in a bind on a shoot. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to, do this really crazy technical thing, or I don't know how to handle this political thing. Like, because there's a lot of politics on set. Like, I have no idea how to handle the situation. Just having someone that you trust who has more experience in the field that you do to call up and be like, hey, how do I handle this? How would you attack this? Or going through this. Or being able to shadow someone on a bigger set, to me has been valuable. So I want to provide that for people who are coming behind me as well.
I love that. Oh man, everything you just said was just so spot on. Like I said, you're speaking my language here. I know you're trilingual, but that is like, that's the 4th language there: creativity, storytelling, paying it forward and, working with young people. Gosh, I wish I had like 5 more hours to talk to you about all of this because you're just hitting so many important marks. And I'm going to ask you another question, and it might put us in the 5-hour mark because you just made me think of it. But how, as a teacher and as an artist, in what ways do you see that it benefits your artistry, as a filmmaker?
To teach it. That's something I learned my first day on a job as a teacher. There were a couple things that when I was in grad school, I was like, I think I kind of got this. I think I got it. And in the minute I was like, oh crap, I have to go and teach this. do I actually understand it? And I had to sit there and like sift through all my notes, sift through all this information, and then like really absorb it. Because like I have to teach it to someone who has no idea about this, and I'm like, okay, how to approach this? How to make it so that they don't suffer, like they don't feel the way I felt when I this maybe, like, so I think because I have to be so much on my game as a teacher, I learn too, and I become better at what I do. So, because I can't explain it to a 6-year-old. If I can't explain, because I had to explain logarithmic, log curves and raw to a bunch of 16-year-olds 2 weeks ago. And I was like, how do I even explain this to 16-year-olds? And I'm like, how do you distill this information? And to be able to do that distillation, you have to really know your stuff. And again, that makes me better, right? The minute, and like even with lighting, that's the other thing. I'm a perpetual student on the job, There's always something I don't know how to do. There's always something that is a challenge on the job because every job is different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even with Michael's Daughters Foundation, I haven't shot puppets before. I'm like, cool, we'll figure that out. Go do some research on YouTube, and like talking to the puppeteer and like, okay, there's 2 kinds that we're shooting. What do you want from this? What do you want from that? Like having those conversations, and I learn myself. And then the minute I have to teach that, I'm like, okay, cool. So that makes me a better artist. It makes me, more knowledgeable, and that improves my craft as well. So it sounds a little bit selfish, but that's how
it totally makes sense. I mean, I think about it, in terms of being an actor. I mean, so many times early on in my career, not to say that I didn't have the awareness of, collaboration and teamwork, but it's like as an actor, I think that a lot of actors, especially when they're first starting out, it is very like me and centered on me coming in and being, the best actor I can be. But then you start to, the more and more you work, and then like if you are fortunate enough to get into a teaching position, you start to really see the collaboration of it all. You start to understand all the many different pieces that go into the image that you see on screen. And so, whenever I book a job now, I got my producer hat on, I got my director hat on, I got, my cinematographer hat. Like I got all these, because I'm like, oh, I understand. Okay, I understand budgets now. I understand, why we're shooting this location or why we changed this shot for this because of A, B, C, and D. And, and it's just like, these are things that young actors, and I know we're not talking about actors, but these are things that they don't really think about, when they first get started. And some never do their whole career, They're just like, it's all about me, which, okay, yes, if you're a brilliant artist and, you're selling box office, like, people are buying into seeing you, but it doesn't hurt to get a sense of the totality of what, it doesn't hurt to learn about all the different parts of it. So you could go in and be a better collaborator and a better team player. So,
yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the things I love about like the job too. Again, like the perpetual learning. I love, because it just, going into talking to other departments. Like, for example, because I direct a lot of music videos for a friend of mine, and like I direct DP, and we were hiring makeup artists, right? And so I'm like, I can plan the lighting, I can make props all day long. I can make camera movements. But then I was like, was really specific about what she wanted, like the makeup. She's asking me like, well, what do you want to do with the makeup? I'm like, at that time I was like, oh God, I'm makeup stupid. Like I know how to do my eyeliner.
Same here.
So I was like, okay. So just the fact of going into like and talking to the makeup artist and being honest about like, look, I'm just not a makeup girly, or wasn't at the time. This is what I want, and like talking in general terms, and like, what can we do to bring this out? And like, now one of the things I talk to my students about when I guest lecture in music video cinematography is like, your makeup artist can be another creative, collaborator and expressive tool. Like the makeup artists we work with, like I've had them put like shimmery like highlighter on like the artist's cheekbones because we were shooting in moonlight, and the minute the moonlight hits it, it just like chisels her face in a very certain way. Like we wanted 80s inspired eye makeup, but we don't want it to be actually full on 80s. We want a modernized version of it, Like, and they bring all of that. Or like we had I was like, we were playing with black light, and I was like, can we incorporate, is there such a thing as black light makeup? And they're like, yes. How can we incorporate that into that? And that's another effect into the music video. And that, for example, is like, that's fascinating to me because like it elevates my craft, it elevates my creativity and what we're creating as a group, right? And again, like coming with that curiosity.
Yeah.
You know, like what can this person contribute to, and how can we enhance the project? And I think, again, that's part of what I love about this job. It's that coming with that curiosity and that collaboration.
Well, I got to say, you're amazing at what you do. I am just beyond fortunate and blessed and honored to be able to collaborate with you. And I hope that, you know, there's more to come with that down the line. Doesn't have to always be a Michael Zorda capacity, maybe something else. But yeah, but it's been a pleasure and a joy working with you. And we're not done yet. I'm going to ask you a few more couple things and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
But real quick, we have a rapid fire question portion. Sure. So I'm just going to ask you a few 5 quick questions. And if you can't answer them in one word or one sentence, this would be maybe MOS. No, I'm joking.
I'll just
mime it. Yeah, exactly.
I'm a terrible actress. You don't want me miming anything.
No. Please. I'm sure you're great. I would love to see some of your work. Okay, here we go. So rapid fire question number 1. Who inspires you the most?
My parents.
Nice. I love that. Okay, if you weren't a creative, what would you be?
A pilot.
Ooh, okay. I love that. Okay. And what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I journal. I'm actually doing The Artist's Way by Gina Corman. So I'm doing pages every day right now. So 4 pages.
I got to get back to that. I was on that all last year and I'm getting back to it. So thank you for reminding me.
Yep.
What is a dream project of yours? You already said Star Wars, and if that's it, cool. But is there anything else?
I mean, Star Wars, but also I think I'd love to shoot a TV show in a genre. I'm a big genre fan that explores stories of identity in a genre context, especially if it were Latino or Latinx focused.
Okay. I like that. All right. Put that out there in the universe. Let's get that done. All right. And this last sentence, if you can complete it, I wish creatives would practice a little more blank.
I wish creatives would practice a little more work-life balance.
Right on.
We can be obsessive workers. And I think I just shot this short film which I really loved, and it's called High Beam. It's one of the LFI Inclusion Fellowship shorts. And we did a test screening with the director, with a bunch of people just to get feedback. And someone asked her what the thesis of the film was about. And I just loved how she phrased it, which was like, perfection is a theft of love. And I was like, yes. And I think that just is so right about that. I was like, there's so much about our search or the obsessiveness in our work sometimes, because we are so dedicated to our work. That is the theft of love of it and the theft of love of life sometimes. And I think, stopping and going, having experiences and having a life outside, a life and an identity outside of our work, I think makes us more rounded individuals.
Yeah.
But also better storytellers. So I think we as artists could prioritize, including myself. I am not excluding myself from this, just FYI. I am just as guilty about this. Just having a more work-life balance, I think, would make us better storytellers.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I wish... No, I can't. We're going to wrap up, but I would love to talk about that some more. Maybe a part 2. There we go. Part 2, because that's real. That's so real.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm just going to wrap it up here. A couple more questions. So basically the way towards the end of this podcast is the previous guest ask a question for the next guest. And so your question that our last guest asked was, what would you miss if you couldn't teach art anymore? And art is all encompassing. It doesn't necessarily mean just visual art, but if you couldn't teach filmmaking, cinematography, storytelling, all the above, what would you miss most about it?
There's a moment that students who are really into it or who have been really affected positively by it, there's this moment that they have that's just this light bulb moment in which they realize oh, this is amazing. I really love that. And I think I would miss seeing those moments because I love it when it happens. And it doesn't have to be this big moment. It's just like I had a student recently that like she's the gaffer in one of the shorts I'm helping teach through. And when I actually, she had that moment recently. I was like, okay, set up these lights. Where would you put them? And she puts the lights, and then she saw it like come alive on screen, and she's like, oh my God, I did that. Like
Yeah.
I actually really like this lighting thing. And I was just like, and it's this moment of like, she's like, I'm in charge of the lighting. I can change how like people's moods are. And I'm like, yes, you can. Yes,
Yep.
go. You could, it's just like, I wouldn't, because I love it when they have those moments. It's just, they're so joyful and so pure and so exciting. Yeah, I would miss that because I think that's what really makes teaching worth it at the end of the day. That moment of change that you see in them.
Oh, I love that. And then what is a question that you would like to leave for the next guest?
This is a question I ask in my own podcast, but I think says a lot about someone because these are 3 different answers and they should be 3 answers.
Okay.
This is a 3-part question. What is your favorite movie? What is what I call your chicken soup movie? The movie you'll watch when you're like feeling like sick or down and just like it makes you feel good. And it's usually not something like, it's like chicken soup. It just makes you feel better, right?
Yeah.
And then what is the movie that has influenced you in your field? So in my case, I usually ask about in your cinematography. I think that triple-headed question like really says a lot about who they are as an artist and as a person because they will be 3 very different movies.
Ooh, I can't wait to ask these. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's going to be great. Okay. You got me thinking too. Although I don't know. I don't know if I want you to get in my head about some of my movies right now. Oh God.
I especially love the answer to the chicken soup movie because like it's never what you expect from people.
Yeah. I immediately 2 movies popped in my head when you said that was Forrest Gump and also Clueless. And so
yeah. It's like and like there's some movies that we just instinctively like my chicken soup movie is The Day After Tomorrow. It's just like, I don't know what about that. It's just my mom and I watch it all like whenever I'm home. And it's just like, it's a movie about the end of the world through a snowstorm. But I'm just like, it makes me feel like I don't know why.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh my God. Okay. I can't wait to ask this question. I'm saying answer it. I can't wait to ask this question because I think it's going to be a really, really good one. Oh, okay. All right. So we're going to wrap it up here. I keep saying we are, but I got 2 more. So the In Trive, this whole platform is for artists and aspiring creatives. And the idea is it's called the Inspired Thriving Tribe. And it's just a space where creatives can come together, get some inspiration, and just really thrive, in their artistic journeys. And so for you, I'm curious, what does thriving look like to you and how do you try to inspire others?
I think thriving can look many ways, I feel. I think for me right now, like, being artistically like doing something you want to be doing within your work at the time you want to be doing. Because like, I think you should never, you never can finish creating. So as long as you're working on something that is the right amount of ease and challenge, that is helping you grow as an artist, I think that feels like thriving artistically, but also being able to support yourself financially as an artist. I think a lot of people ignore the fact that this is also an industry and a business, and like we need to live off of that. So to be able to balance those 2 things in which you are able to be creative, but still feel supported in everything you need in your non-artistic life, right? To have that space for those things to coexist. I feel it's like thriving. And teaching again, like for me, the more I give back in that way feels like I'm not only making myself better, but I'm making the community around me better. And it feels like, what is that quote? It's like, a rising tide floats all boats. I really feel that with the teaching thing. So like if I'm going up the career ladder, I'm taking as many people as I can with me. So
I love that. Oh, so good. Oh, Emmy. Okay. So very last thing, how can people find out more about you? How can they follow you and stay up to date on all the things you have going on?
Yeah. So you can see my work on my website. It's www.emilia, Mendieta, Mendieta.com. I have a lot of, work selection there, my reels up there and all that stuff. And you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is at @EMI_Mendieta, Mendieta. Pretty active poster on Instagram, actually. Yeah, and I just updated my reels and I just let it out today. So new work on there. If anyone needs a DP, I'm your girl.
Awesome. You guys, please make sure to follow her, check out her website, check out her social media, and yeah, stay up to date on all things Emilia. So thank you so much, Emmy, for stopping by. I really, really appreciate it. This was such a great conversation, and we might need to do a part 2. So
thank you so much, Ciera. It was great to be on here. And anytime, I'm up for part 2.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All right.
Wasn't that such a great interview? I am so happy that you had a chance to stop by and listen to Emilia's journey. And hopefully you were able to take a few little tidbits from her journey and apply it to what you're doing in your career. And listen, if you want more content like this, you already know what you have to do. You have to hit the like and subscribe button down below. Do it right now, okay? Awesome. Thank you. And if you want a little bit more, head on over to theintrive.com where we have articles, resources, and courses to help you navigate your creative career. And if you're up to it, go ahead and sign up to our mailing list because we are working on creating events tailored to you and you want to be the first to know about them. And that's the only way we can let you know about them is if you sign up to our mailing list and they hit your inbox first. All right. Listen, as always, I love that you're here. Thank you so much for sitting with us, listening to these stories, and getting some inspiration or motivation to help you tackle your creative career. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you at the next one. But until then, please know that I am right here standing alongside of you in this creative journey. And also, I want you to stay inspired, keep thriving, and know that I love you. All right. See you at the next one. Bye.